With silver up nearly 1/3 year to date, it's a good time to be a precious metal miner. I'm with Dan Dickson. He is the CEO of Endeavour Silver. Endeavour has 2 mines in operation and a third coming online this year. The company plans to produce about 5.5 million silver ounces in 2024. Dan, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It must be a great time right now. I see that gold has been hitting all-time highs. Silver's been making its great run. I see that the company is nearly doubled this time year to date.
Yeah, I mean, you try not to get too high, and with when things are moving well, just like last year, when not try to get too low. We're trying to execute. It's great that silver has hit $32, come off a little bit lately, but ultimately it proves well for operations, helps our cash flow as we build our Terronera project.
Thumbnail your operations. What have you got going right now?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. We have our Guanacevi and Bolanitos assets that have been operating for quite a long time, 18 years and 17 years respectively. We're going to produce about 9 million silver equivalent ounces for 2024. I call them mature assets, meaning our cost profile is quite high with that, but we're in an extremely exciting time for Endeavour. We're building our Terronera asset that we're going to commission later this year. That's effectively going to double our production and cut our cost profile in half. So cash flows are expected to significantly increase for 2025, which is always good.
Can you go a little bit more into the financials right now? What's going to happen to your all-in sustaining cost and everything else?
Yeah, for sure. Well, for 2024, we get guided $22 to $23 all-in sustaining costs. Q1, we came in slightly below that. From a cost per ton standpoint, we're right on line with budgets and plans. Really what happens for 2025 is we cut it in cost. Terronera itself, it will produce all the gold pays for the silver production. So all-in sustaining costs is effectively break even at Terronera. So we go from $22 all-in sustaining costs for 2024 to kind of the $12, $13 range next year. So it'll be phenomenal. Our balance sheet's in good shape. We pulled debt for the first time with regards to building Terronera in this current quarter. And by the end of the build, we'll have about $120 million of debt on our books, which we've never had. But again, with the cash flows that will come from Terronera, we'll easily be able to service that debt.
Terronera is on track right now?
Yep. When we announced construction in April of 2023, we thought we'd be commissioning in Q4 of 2024. We still remain on track for commissioning of this year. So knock on wood, the next 6 months goes as well as it has for the last kind of 12 months. And like I say, we'll be commissioning relatively quickly.
I want to get a little bit more talking about Mexico, but let's just stick with the operations. You have some exploration projects as well. Tell us about Pitarrilla.
Yeah, I mean, Pitarrilla is an asset that we picked up in 2022, I believe, and we bought it for $70 million. It's one of the world's largest undeveloped silver deposits. So there's 600 million ounces of silver defined there, plus zinc, plus lead. Our predecessor, who we bought it off of, SSR, they put out a feasibility study on the asset as an open pit operation in 2012. I think at $25 silver price. Prior to that, they put out an underground pre-feasibility study out in 2009 and at $11 silver price. So we've been advancing that project. We have an underground at it. We're actually drilling some feeder systems as we speak. We expect that to be complete by the end of the year, and then we'll look at scoping studies for 2025 and hopefully an economic study before 2025 is out, because we want to move our development team from that Terronera project into Pitarrilla and try to grow. Our goal is to be a senior silver producer. So with Pitarrilla, or with Terronera coming online, we get to about 15 million silver equivalent ounces. We think Pitarrilla can get us into the 20-25 million ounce range. So we have phenomenal growth coming in Endeavour in the next, hopefully, 3-4 years.
Now, Endeavour, all of your operations are in Mexico. You're a Mexican specialist?
Yeah, we are a Mexican specialist. We do have an asset up in Nevada. It's a gold asset we picked up about 3 years ago. We just haven't moved along just because of allocation of resources. And then we do have exploration properties in Chile. So we have currently 2 operating assets in Mexico. Our Terronera project development asset in the state of Jalisco, Mexico. Pitarrilla is in the state of Durango. We have another exploration asset that we really like called Pitarrilla. It's just that Pitarrilla has moved ahead of it just because of the scale and leverage that's at Pitarrilla.
Mexican elections are coming up pretty quickly right now.
Yeah.
Impact on miners?
Impact on miners, likely. Smaller impact than probably expected or people expect. The Morena party is currently in power, which is AMLO. He's a populist. His predecessor is a lady by the name of Claudia Sheinbaum. She's well ahead in the polls. The expectation is she will take office. The changeover will be in November. I think with Claudia taking office, I'm not sure how much changes from a rhetoric standpoint, but she does have a history of being more pro business. So hopefully that improves just because of the negative rhetoric coming from AMLO. He hasn't changed taxes. They tried to put through mining reforms. Those didn't go through over this past 2 years. So like I say, our expectation is kind of stay the course with Claudia getting in.
Locally with your operations right now that are coming in, how are community relations?
You know what? We've always done a phenomenal job with community relations at Guanacevi and Bolanitos. We feel like you need a social license from your neighbors to be able to operate. And prior to kind of the big movement in ESG, we always took that extremely seriously, and it becomes a fabric of our company. And we took a lot of the principles that we learned at Guanacevi and Bolanitos. We've always had a great track record to Terronera. And quite frankly, at Terronera, we've had a great track record there. We've been there since 2013, really working with the community and trying to communicate what's happening at Terronera from an exploration standpoint, and then when we went into development, and we'll continue that as we go into operations. Things change, but as I say, we've always had a very good track record with our communities and good relationships.
I want to step back a bit and look at the general silver market right now. Yeah. How does silver supply look right now?
Well, we're in a structural deficit for the last 3 to 4 years. I think that message has been getting out to the masses more lately. It's one of those metals. It's a very small market. There's not a lot of literature about it. The industrial capacity or the industrial uses for silver has exploded over the last kind of 5-10 years. And industrial use of metals gone from about 350 million ounces a year to about 550 million ounces. And that's the greenifications, reduction of carbon, using it in our electronics. And there's more and more gadgets in your cars that require silver with regards to flat screens. And then obviously from a solar standpoint or solar panel standpoint. Big growth in that field. We've seen silver go from 80 million ounces to about 180, 200 million ounces. That's expected to grow to 250 to 300 million ounces over the coming years. So the industrial component of uses for silver has grown immensely, and supply hasn't kept up. We've been relatively flat on supply, for at least 10 to 15 years. That squeeze is coming, and I think people are starting to understand that deficit that we're seeing.
Does it make sense for Endeavour Silver to do some M&A? There's, Hecla's been doing some deals over the past 2 years.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, of course, we're always looking at growth opportunities. I think M&A has to be done with a little bit of intelligence, and it's got to be accretive. For us right now, we're very focused on delivering on Terronera. When we come into commissioning at the end of this year, we expect almost a re-rating in our share price. So we'll get some benefit into our share value. You're always looking at things. We have a corporate development group looking for assets. We're looking for assets from an exploration standpoint, development standpoint, operating standpoint, but it's got to make sense. It's got to fit. It's got to fit with what we're good at. And we got to be able to add value as well. So, like I say, right now, I think we're really focused on Terronera and delivering that asset for commissioning at the end of this year. And then we'd probably get a little bit more serious. But again, we have phenomenal growth built into our current pipeline already.
Talking to people that are operating mine, they say they have, there's 3 challenges that will be running them. That'll be finding people, inflation issues, and then also water issues is what I hear. What is top concerns with you?
Yeah, the water issue I'll probably touch on first. Guanacevi and Terronera will be producing a lot of water out there, but Mexico in general has got a water issue. And then part of the mining reforms they passed, they kind of deal with that. And for a company our size, we have a compliance group that handles it. It was more compliance around it. And I think that's good. For Bolanitos, we're in an area where we get droughts. And I'd say every 5-6 years, we might have to bring in water. From a usage standpoint, but our recycling of water is very high. We recycle over 93% of our water. So it's good from that standpoint. It's always going to be a challenge. On the other 2 points with regards to people, I think in Mexico, there's a long history of mining. There's great miners in Mexico. What Canadians and Americans brought into Mexico in the 90s was exploration, expertise, access to capital. The expertise or your professionals in mining, I think they are graying. There's a gap there. it will become an advantage of a mining company who has the proper training programs and attract and retain talent. And I don't think that's specific to mining. I think that's all industries that you sometimes get these gaps when things are a little bit more sparse in the space. Again, from our Terronera standpoint, we have a very seasoned group building that mine, a lot of experience, but on the next mine, and maybe that impacts us, and it's going to impact the industry. And hopefully we do it as safely as we can. I think the first and foremost thing that happens with less experience is safety gets compromised just because guys are learning new things. And as I say, we try to do our best job of programs that we have in place to kind of pass that down through the generations or different work groups and ages. And from our standpoint, again, it hasn't been a big impact to us, but we're mindful of it.
Last question on inflation. One of those topics was, a lot of people are looking towards Q2, and then that's when there's going to see a real lift in margins with what we're seeing with gold prices, and then hopefully a containment on costs. How are costs looking right now?
Yeah, Q1, as I said, our costs came in slightly under from an all-in sustaining standpoint. Our cost per tons were generally in line with what our budgets were. Inflation's a hard thing to manage. Obviously, we still need the widgets that go into the operations, and we try to manage it the best way we can. And economies of scale help to offset that a little bit, but we're constrained at Guanacevi and Bolanitos with the resources we have there. At Terronera, we're going to ultimately be constrained by the topography. So we have a 2,000 ton per day operation. We're not looking to grow that operation. We're going to look to extend mine life there. So right now we have a 10-year mine life. Ultimately, we think we're going to be there 15, 20, 25 years when it's all said and done. You're always looking for efficiencies, whether that's for costs, whether that's for emissions. We're working on that. But it becomes kind of a diminishing returns on what you're looking for, and does it really change that story? Now, we always try to tighten our belt. When prices have come up, we've already had people come and ask for different alternatives to bring into the company, and how disciplined can we be as a management team to prevent that creep in costs? Obviously, margins have already expanded with the higher prices, but it's how do we contain costs as best we can, not just for Endeavour, but the industry. We'll see wage growth. We'll see growth in wages on geologists, engineers, with just kind of the demand for those things. And it'll be a challenge, but that's our job as a management team to kind of work at those challenges.
Lastly, Dan, milestones over the next 12 months, obviously Terronera. Yeah,
Terronera is the biggest milestone for us. As I say, it completely changes our company. The growth profile of going from 9 million to 15 million ounces of silver equivalent production is very significant for us, but more importantly, it's our cash flow profile. Terronera is going to be one of the lowest cost producing assets in the silver space. We're going to try to leverage that and bring Pitarrilla on behind it to try to get to what our goal is of being a senior silver producer.
Dan, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Michael McRae with Kitco Mining.